Hello and welcome everybody to today's training industry webinar, Creating Continuous Learning Journeys with AI. I'm Liz Spate, the Events Marketing Specialist here at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. Before we get started, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speaker and get the most out of today's program. So throughout today's event, if you haven't already, thank you so much for chatting in the chat where you are located. Would love to know where you're joining us from today. So if you haven't opened that up, we're going to use this window to interact with our speaker with any comments. And as for questions, please submit all those questions in the Q&A section on your toolbar below. We'll be addressing all those comments and questions throughout the event and at the end of the program during our Q&A section. We would also love to hear about what you've learned from today's session on social media, so please follow @Adobe and hashtag #TIWebinars as you share your favorite takeaways with your colleagues. And when this webinar ends, you should receive a short evaluation survey. We always welcome your feedback on things like the content, speakers, topics, or anything else you would like to share with us, so be sure to complete that survey after the event. And as always, Training Industry, and as always at Training Industry, the webinar will be recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you'll receive a follow-up email from us that will include the link to the on-demand program for you to share with your team. And if you've attended one of our programs in the past, thank you so much for joining us again. And if this is your first webinar with us, welcome. At Training Industry, we offer dozens of webinars with subjects ranging from AI, analytics, to onboarding, upskilling, and reskilling. We cover about every topic relevant to leaders of training organizations around the globe. And now let me introduce you to today's speaker. Justin Seeley is a highly experienced learning and development leader with over 2 decades of expertise in online learning and graphic design. And currently, Justin is the e-learning evangelist at Adobe, where his comprehensive knowledge of Adobe products and learning design empowers him to passionately inspire and educate customers about Adobe's dynamic e-learning suite. And with that, take it away, Justin.
All right, thank you, Liz. Let me go ahead and grab the screen share here. There we go. There we go. All right. Hopefully everybody can see my screen now. All right, good. Let me turn off that thing that says reactions. Okay, so I won't go into a big thing about me. If you'd like to connect with me, there's a QR code on your screen. Scan that thing with your phone. It'll take you to my LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. It's also where I put up a lot of content. I've got a weekly newsletter there. I share a lot of video content there. A lot of documents I share are there, like carousels and things like that, to help you stay on top of everything that's happening in the world with L&D. So if you have any questions after the fact, or you get off this call and you're like, oh shoot, I should have asked him that, just make sure you scan that. You'll be able to get this in the PDF download that comes afterwards as well. And again, LinkedIn's always the easiest way to get in touch with me. So as Liz says, my name is Justin Seeley. I am a learning evangelist for Adobe. I am currently located in very stormy and wet Nashville, Tennessee. Spent most of the night watching weather updates. So today's webinar will be brought to you by Extra Strength Coffee and Diet Coke. So today's agenda, we've got a few things we're going to cover, 4 main points. Number 1, why is AI shaping the very nature of continuous learning? 2, how can we structure org-wide skilling strategies that scale? Number 3, what new roles and responsibilities are emerging in this AI era? And number 4, how L&D leaders can navigate this transformation with the help of certain AI tools. So let's start with why and how AI is reshaping continuous learning. What we know about continuous learning is that it still matters in the grand scheme of things, especially when you talk about key business metrics. In fact, organizations that invest in upskilling their people consistently outperform their peers across these 4 big metrics: innovation, resilience, shareholder value, and agility. You can see here that as far as innovation goes, organizations with a strong learning culture are 92% more likely to develop an innovative product or process, according to Deloitte. And according to McKinsey, companies with continuous learning cultures recover from market disruption 58% faster than their peers. That one might be relevant given what's going on now. And public companies with highly engaged workforces supported by learning outperform their peers by 147% in earnings per share. And organizations that promote continuous learning are 46% more likely to be first to market, according to Gallup. Now, what I want to do is start things off. So this obviously kind of sets the stage, saying that, if we are able to create this culture of continuous learning and build these new pathways and things for people to learn AI and for people to implement it into their workflows. This is why it matters, because these are the things, the core drivers within a business that are going to be directly impacted by such a task. So what I want to do here is I want to start with a poll. And I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 5, how prepared do you feel your organization is to handle this AI shift? So we're going to give you about 30 seconds to answer this. There should be a pop-up there in the poll, and you can do 1 through 5. 1 being not very ready, 5 being extremely ready, and then there are degrees in between. So just take some time, vote in this poll, and we will take a look at the results once it is completed. I think, my opinion here is that it's gonna be a pretty wide gamut um, of people. There we go. There's the Adobe poll. Okay, there's the poll. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how prepared do you feel your organization is for the AI shift? So not a lot of fives, right? We've got a lot of people falling here in the middle. This is pretty much what I would expect. And when we get later on to talk about the AI implementation ladder, which I'll talk about what that means later, I also expect some similar results there, but we'll see. What you're seeing here is that I think a lot of people are in this kind of try it and find out mode. People are aware of it, right? Not very many of us are down here in the ones. A bunch of us are here in the 2s and the 3s, and there's a few more people up here in the 4s, but very low numbers in the 5s and the 1s. So what that tells me is that there are a lot of people that are interested in this. There are a lot of companies that are pushing this on their employees, but we haven't really quite figured out like how this fits in. And we as L&D professionals can help push this forward. We can be the key driver in this seat. So I want to talk now about how do we design org-wide skilling strategies for AI specifically. So skilling at scale requires a cultural shift across the board. It's not just a program anymore. It's going to be a practice that we implement across our entire organization. And so, in order to do that, we have to make sure that AI learning is a part of our daily workflow. So, that means putting this in your everyday language, putting it into all of the different courses that you have, putting it into your everyday work that people do. And we need to reinforce the core principles that you develop around AI continuously. And that could mean things like what tools you use, what are the rules about what you're allowed to put in it, what are the rules about what you're not allowed to put in it, what are the acceptable outputs, how many human checks are there between output and final deliverable, things like that. And those are all things that we have to think about. And the L&D teams, while not necessarily the driver behind those final decisions, we can be a very highly informed participant in those conversations. And finally, using skilling to shape the mindset and behavior org-wide. So what do I mean by that? Well, I think one of the responsibilities that we have is that as we move forward in this kind of Wild West environment of AI, we have a responsibility to shift the mindset of the employee, of the teammate, of the customer, whoever it is that we're trying to educate. We have the responsibility to shift their mindset and change their behavior in such a way so that A, we are getting what we need back from them, which is AI literacy, AI tool proficiency, things like that. But from their perspective, they are getting peace of mind. They are getting, I think, reassurance that this is a tool, not a replacement necessarily. And so what we want to do here with this diagram on the right is as we push out learning, we want to have people apply what they've learned, reflect on what they've learned, and then repeat this process. And this should be something that happens continuously throughout all of our courseware, throughout all of our learning paths, throughout all of our programs that we create. We need to have this sort of iterative approach to implementing this. And I think you should start out slowly and then work your way forward with this. Take like a crawl, walk, run approach to it. Now, why do I say that? I say that because AI is fundamentally changing the rules of continuous learning. In the traditional learning world, training was very role specific. So you had manager training, developer training, etc. It was owned mostly by HR and L&D. It occurred periodically or on demand. There was no regular cadence to it. It was highly focused on compliance, onboarding, and soft skills. And it was a top down, one fits all approach, one size fits all approach. In the era of AI, we have to make sure that we understand that AI is going to impact every role, more than likely. Every role in some way, shape, or form. Now, impact is not the same as replace. Impact is not the same as fundamentally change, but impact, it just means it will touch some facet, some aspect of your job, of your world. And it's not just the technical jobs. This requires frequent self-directed upskilling. So that means people need to be aware of how it's going to impact what they're doing, and they need to be given resources proactively that allow them to upskill themselves so that they are essentially future proofing themselves against these big changes that are occurring. That means that L&D needs to partner with every part of the business. It's not just HR. It's not just one, it's not just IT. It's everywhere. So L&D needs to partner with marketing, with sales, with biz development, all of these different departments so that you can understand A, what is the impact of AI on your business unit? B, what is the impact on the people within your business unit? And C, what are the skills and tools and mindset changes you would like to see your people adopt as a result of training that we create? That lets you know that speed and adaptability matter now more than ever. You have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to implement new things. So a rapid development process for L&D is essential. We cannot do these long tail development cycles that we used to do, and we can't do these long form courses that we need to do. We need to switch to more quick on demand training that is easily deployable and easily retired so that we can hot swap it out with new things, because this technology is growing at such a rate that most of the time, by the time you've developed a full quote unquote course, I don't know how long your development cycle is, but a lot of times by the time I used to develop things, I used to work at Twitter, for example. Many times by the time we would develop a full on course, the advertising format we were trying to certify people on would have changed so dramatically that we weren't even able to ship the course. So we pivoted to a model that was more modular and more lightweight, on demand, that we could hot swap things when things change. That's the type of mindset you should adopt here. And then also learning's got to be embedded in the daily workflow of these people. So you should put on-demand access to training within the materials that they're working with. So whether that's an app, whether that's a piece of documentation, doesn't matter. Give them access through pop-up windows, through notifications, through emails, whatever it is, to say, hey, I noticed you're using this new tool. Would you like some help with that? I think agentic AI is going to be a big part of this as well, adding agentic tools to our current applications and new applications so that they can help you do your work faster. I saw a really interesting demonstration of this on LinkedIn by a friend of mine. His name is Morty Golding, and he was doing a demo with the new Google Studio. And Google Studio was able to recognize what was on his screen. He was in Adobe Illustrator, and he said he needed to design a logo. Could it help him design the logo? And it said, yes, absolutely. What would you like to be in the logo? He told them, and then it said, okay, we're going to walk through drawing the basic shapes. It helped him draw the shapes. It recognized when he drew a circle that was not perfect. It was more of an oval, and it corrected him. And it told him, hold down the shift key while you're drawing it. It was so amazing. It was a very basic demonstration, but it was something that showed me that putting things within the flow of work is ultimately going to be the most helpful for people, because it gives them the proper context while they're actually working and helps them learn how to do it. But if they're not literate on AI tools, if they're not comfortable using these things, then they're not going to use them, and therefore they're going to lag behind. A big stat that I came across while researching this presentation is that 40% of the jobs impacted by AI in the next 3 years are going to require new skills and new ways of working. That's a pretty big number, especially considering that it's just in the next 3 years. So 40% of jobs will be impacted by AI in the next 3 years, and they will require new skills and new ways of working. We're already seeing this. We're seeing this a lot in the creative industry. We're seeing this a lot. Anything that has to do with generative AI, we're seeing this, I think, a lot more. But this is going to come into play with marketing. This is going to come into play with sales. This is going to come into play with everybody eventually. And if we're not up on how these things are used, what are the proper ways for us to prompt it, what are the proper ways for us to evaluate its output, what are the proper ways for us to govern the type of data that goes in and what comes out, et cetera. Like all of that stuff matters, and we've got to be on top of it as much as possible. Um, the fact of the matter is that traditional training, it just can't keep up. The old training models that we have now, they're slow, they're static, they're top down. AI needs fast, flexible, continuous learning. It's not about a one size fits all approach. We need to be able to personalize the learning, not just to the role, but to the person. So, I work on a product for Adobe Learning Manager, for example. One of the things that our platform does that's really good is you tell it when you get in there as a learner, like, I'm interested in these products or these skills, or your manager tells you you need to mark that you're interested in these skills or these products so that you can upskill yourself for the future. Great. As long as there's content about those things that you've marked, then over time, Adobe Learning Manager kind of learns your behavior, learns what you like, learns what you don't like, learns what you're interested in based on what you've put in, and it creates personalized learning recommendations for you. And that's what we need. We need personalized learning recommendations. We need personalized learning paths that are generated based off of all of the behaviors that we do. So, let's say, for example, you take a class, you don't do so hot on the exam. The LMS needs to be smart enough to say, you know what, he passed it, but he scored below average. So maybe we need to give him some remedial things, especially in these four categories, and then it gives you some stuff to look at. Long courses and static content, it's not enough. It can't keep pace with evolving skills. It's not something that we can do anymore. We have to be more targeted with this, with short on-demand learning. Everybody around the org has to have access to this stuff. By the way, it can't be siloed based on department. I think everybody should have access to everybody's, unless it is a specific piece of learning that you need some sort of clearance to get a hold of or something like that. We need to make sure that everybody has access to everything, because we need to understand the full scope of how AI is being used in our organizations. And then all of these things need to be performance focused. It does not need to be just objective focused, right? We don't just want to do things for the sake of doing them. It doesn't need to be compliance driven. It needs to be more performance driven. So how do we get people from point A to point B? How do we raise the AI literacy within our core group of employees? How do we increase the product adoption of this specific tool that we've said is going to help us get to the next level of revenue, or whatever the case may be? We need to have all of those things in place, and we need to create training that is based on those particular aspects. So there's kind of a framework that I've been thinking about in terms of how do we help people learn these things. And it's MOA, simple way. MOA is the simple way to remember it. And it's motivation, opportunity, and autonomy is how I would go about it. So if I was tasked today with putting people through a learning program for AI and creating this culture of continuous learning, I would follow this. So one, make the learning meaningful, tie it to their goals, their role, their real world outcomes, the things that they do every single day. Number two, give them the opportunity at every single turn to learn this stuff. So it's got to be accessible, and it's got to be embedded within the flow of their work. Like I said, making it inside of an application, making it inside of a piece of documentation, whether that's a link or whatever, just giving them that opportunity to learn things. And then number three, giving them the autonomy to do it. A lot of people are self-directed, and so you have to let learners self-direct and choose how and when and what they learn. Previously, we've stuck people kind of in this box where we've said, you need to come take this class. This is the one way to take this class. It is a one-time live webinar that you have to participate in and mark your attendance on. That turns a lot of people off. We have to give them the autonomy to come to this training on their own. That's not to say we can't incentivize them or remind them or encourage them to go, but also giving them more options on how they engage with the training is going to be very important. And that goes back to the opportunity piece. So yes, hold your live webinar, make it optional for people to come. Then let people take that as an on-demand course. Maybe it's augmented by an AI, an agentic chatbot that allows them to ask questions, because they can't ask questions directly within the webinar, right? Because it's not live anymore. And then that helps prep them for maybe a test that they have to pass in order to get some sort of internal certification for a new tool that you've created, or whatever the case may be. So just try to think about that as you are trying to build out new programs, and as you're thinking about what this looks like and how you get people jazzed up about these things. Just think about how to motivate them, how to give them more opportunities, and how to make their learning journey a little bit more autonomous. I think that's very important. AI maturity is another thing that we have to think about. And we have to be real about where we are on this ladder. I talked a little bit about this ladder earlier, but the ladder starts at the bottom at around the awareness stage. You're aware of what AI is. You haven't really tried it, maybe, but you're getting there. Maybe you have ChatGPT, maybe you don't. When you get past that awareness stage, like, okay, I know I need to use this, but I don't know how. That's when you get into the experimentation phase. So you start to think about, okay, I'm using ChatGPT, I'm putting things into it. I'm using Adobe Firefly, I'm generating images, but why am I doing this? What is it doing for me? How can this save me time? How can this save my team time? How can this save my company time or money or whatever the case may be? Once you have figured out what the outputs need to be from that experimentation phase, that's when you move into the adoption phase. And the adoption phase is you are getting people on board to say, yes, this is a great methodology you've created, or a great strategy you've thought of, a great tool you've introduced us to. Let's put this into play. That's the adoption phase. And then the enablement phase is once you've implemented it, you've got it ready to go, you've got to train your workforce on how to use it, right? Because most of the time the decision makers are making these decisions long before they give it to the actual people who are using it. So then that's the enablement phase. You've got to develop a robust enablement play to make sure that people are interested in it, to make sure people aren't afraid of it, and to make sure that people see the inherent value in whatever it is, and then help them roll it out. Finally, that innovation stage, that's where you've got people where you have a great group of folks who are very literate in the world of AI, and they are actually bringing you ideas. You know what? I love that this thing helps me write my weekly reports, but it would be great if it did this. I love that this thing helps me build my PowerPoint pitch decks, but it would be great if it helped me analyze, prospective client lists and told me what, whatever the case may be. That's where the innovation comes in. And so you want to get your people to the last two steps of that ladder. And so this is where I think the next poll question is going to be pretty important, because I'd like to know, as of right now, where do you place your organization on that maturity ladder? Do you think you're in the awareness phase? Do you think you're in the experimentation phase? Do you think you're in the adoption phase? Are you in the enablement phase already? And are you in the innovation phase already? So we're going to put these responses in the chat, and just let me know which one that you're in. Experimentation, very cool. Adoption. Adoption, okay. Very cool. Between experimentation and adoption. And I think that's fair. I think it's fair to say that you're in between one or two of them. That's totally cool. But you notice what we're not seeing here. We are not seeing a ton of people that are stuck directly at awareness, which is good, because that means a lot of people have at least heard of it and they've moved on to a part where they're trying things. But we're also not seeing a ton of people at the enablement and above stage. And that's pretty much what I would say is where the bulk of companies are today. I think the official stat was, and this is at a webinar I did a couple of weeks ago, something like 92% of all companies say that they are using AI in some way. They've implemented it in some way, but less than 2% or something like that claim to be AI mature. And so if you take a look at like this ladder again, I would consider anything past adoption as being close to AI mature. You're definitely AI mature if you're at the enablement stage. If you're at the innovation stage, you're like above the curve. But this particular case here, I would say that the median here adoption, that's probably where a lot of people are trying to get to right now. I would say a majority of people are in those that middle three is where I would say. And I don't think you can necessarily call yourself AI mature if you're on the bottom half of that. I think you could say you're AI aware and that kind of thing, but AI maturity comes once you've got a process, a tool, something that is going to help you that you're getting ready to roll out to your people. So that's just an interesting thing to see where everybody's at. Thank you all for participating in that. I really appreciate it. There are a lot of new roles and realities that are coming. Oh, Liz is on screen. That means we have questions. Yes,
Yes.
please, Liz.
As we were talking about the scale, there was a really good question that came in about, for those who are still kind of in the awareness stage. So
Yeah.
somebody put in a great question about how do you message people about AI who are afraid of it? When we're already at experimenting, adopting,
Yeah.
how do we get those people up? How do we message them?
I think it's kind of a tricky thing simply because for as many people that are out there touting the wonderful things that AI can do, there are an equal amount of people out there that are talking about it like it's the Skynet from Terminator, right? There's a lot of people out there that are kind of dissenting voices about it. So I don't think there's any way that we're ever going to get away from that, but I do think there are ways that you can, subtly message to these people that we're not actively trying to replace you. Now, there will be companies that do take big swings and try to replace whole swaths of their workforce with AI. I ultimately believe that will fail. Just me personally. I don't believe that you'll be able to wholesale do that. I think you could offload some roles, but not all. In terms of messaging these things, you have to show them the value of what the tool is, of what the whatever it is you're talking about. Let's just assume you're talking about an AI based tool that they already use that you're upgrading, right? So you're saying, okay, this tool where you used to create these manual reports, and you've told me yourself that these things take up 8 to 10 hours of your week. What if I told you that I could shave that down to 2 hours a week by using this particular tool? That's going to save you, 30% of your time throughout the week. And you can devote that to being on, this AI council or something like that. I think that's the other thing. You have to give them more opportunities to be involved with the planning and the implementation of these tools. So have a committee, have an open meeting, have discussions with your people, you know, have them tell you what they're afraid of straight up and then answer them honestly. And if the answer is yes, we are trying to, take some of these things out of the hands of humans and put them in to AI completely, be honest about that, but give them the opportunity to upskill themselves into a different role. Something that I think about a lot is like as we start to talk about these new roles that are going to come about here is how can we help people pivot? Because we're still going to need them because AI can't run, at least not today, completely by itself. It still needs human interaction. So let's say that we use it for automating something like marketing. Well, somebody's still got to be there to make sure that the messaging is correct, to make sure the tone is correct and all that kind of stuff. So can we have a marketer that's also a prompt engineer or have a marketing pro that's also an AI data analytics person? Things like that. So giving them opportunities to scale their capabilities while at the same time being fully transparent about what we intend to do is very important. So that's kind of where I stand on that. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, go past the poll. New roles and realities in this AI driven world. So we've got new roles, we've also got new skills, and there's going to be some new realities to this as well. So I talked a little bit about this just now. Some of the emerging roles and things that you can think about, ways that you can help people pivot, or ways that you can pivot yourself, right? Prompt engineering. This is one of the things, and I wrote an article about the limitations on AI on LinkedIn this week, as a matter of fact. I don't know if you guys saw, all these people are posting images of themselves as action figures everywhere. ChatGPT got this new image creation thing, and there's this trend where everybody's like, oh my God, I used this simple prompt and I turned myself into an action figure. That's great. I took the prompt that a lot of these people used, I put it in, and the image I got back, I didn't like. I didn't think that it looked like me. I didn't think the accessories were correct. It didn't capture like my face the way I wanted it to. So it required me to have to go in, send another picture, tell them to change this, that, or the other. Like there were several rounds that went into this image. Now you see these posts all over the place. You think that people are doing a one and done. They're typing in this simple prompt, they're getting back this amazing result. I don't think that's always the case. I think there's a lot of work that goes in on the back end that nobody sees. The final image that I produced as part of the article that I shared actually had to go into Photoshop to merge two images together so that they could get my facial hair correct. And that's like the thing that I'm running into the most. So I think figuring out how to talk to these things and work with these things is going to be an extremely important role moving forward. And if you understand how to craft effective inputs to optimize the responses for specific tasks and becoming this prompt engineer, that's a no-brainer role that people are going to want to have around. Same thing with AI ethics. I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago where the number one thing I said, what are you most concerned about with AI? And the poll, it was like 60% of people said AI ethics. Well, what does that even mean in today's world? A lot of companies don't have AI ethics policies. They're not even thinking about it. So we have to ensure that these systems are designed and used responsibly, fairly, and transparently. And that's something that I think that people can get involved with. Volunteering to be a part of a steering committee, volunteering to help shape the policies of these things. Now, ultimately, this is going to be vetted out by executives and lawyers and things like that. But having input in it would be would be a good benefit. And then also having that in your back pocket as a marketer or as a salesperson or whatever, as your team comes to you or as your boss comes to you and asks you to do X, Y, or Z using an AI tool, you will be able to say to them, hey, you know what? That actually kind of violates the AI ethics policy. We might want to rethink how we do that. Finally, another role that's coming out, AI trainers. People being able to curate and refine training data to improve the performance and accuracy of these AI models. So I think, and I'm not taught AI trainers is probably a misnomer. A lot of people see that and they think, oh my God, you're going to let AI teach classes. No, I'm talking about people who know how to train AI specifically. So people who know how to give it the information it needs and how to put guardrails around it so it only uses that particular set of data so it doesn't hallucinate off the chart when you ask it a question. So being able to curate and refine that data to improve its performance and accuracy is going to be an immensely popular and necessary role that we have. So we need people to do that. And these three things are all three things that you can today go and take courses on, read books on, read LinkedIn posts on. There are every single week I see new certifications about prompt engineering, ethics, training data models, all that stuff. There's new things every single week. So if you are interested in any one of these and you think it would be a good add-on to your role, or maybe you think like, oh no, somebody's going to come for my job with these AI things, try to pivot into one of these. The skill shift is even bigger because this is going to impact your entire organization. These are all things that are going to impact everybody in your org, including the critical thinking skills. So people being able to analyze information and make sound and reasoned choices based off of that. People are going to have to take these AI outputs and be able to analyze them and be able to see like, okay, is this true? B, is this helpful? C, how can I use this information to make a better decision in whatever thing I'm trying to do? We have to raise the bar on AI literacy as well. AI literacy is the hockey stick is very high right now in terms of people trying to get there. But I would say the actual hockey stick in terms of AI understanding and comprehension is a lot lower because outside of these flashy demos, like the stuff that they're doing with Adobe Photoshop, for example, like swapping people's hair, cutting out the background, that kind of thing, outside of those flashy demos, I don't think there are a whole lot of people that are diving deep into workflows and processes that can be implemented with these AI tools like they should be. These things should be seen as a creativity and a productivity accelerator. And we're not there yet. I think some people are, and that's great, but you have to find a way to scale that org wide. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of be this siloed thing that doesn't really do much for anybody. Finally, that ethical decision making piece. People need to be able to understand a little bit more about what's going on with these things. How are they making the choices they're making? Why are they making the choices they're making? And what can we do about it if we feel like there's something that's not quite right with it? And so those all tie into the roles above there. And so I think that's why it behooves us all to get involved with the top three things. And then hopefully that will help upskill us in the bottom three things. But those bottom three things are going to be very important for everybody in your organization. And let's see, we have some questions, I believe.
Yes, yes, we do. So, we kind of asked about those who, are initially afraid to the beginning. And so now we're, fast forward ahead. And there was a great question about how do we make more people comfortable putting in data when they don't understand where it's going?
Mm. Yeah, I think that is where, and there's an initiative called XAI or explainable AI that is very popular right now, which is kind of hoping to make the change where AI is no longer a black box. Today, you go into some of these tools and you put information in, you have no idea where that information goes after you've put it in. Well, some people don't care. Let's be real about that. Like when I first started doing it and I was very interested in ChatGPT, I didn't care. But when I was working at a place, not Adobe, but I was working somewhere else, and the IT people, I guess, were monitoring ChatGPT use, and they were like, "Hey, you can't put that in there." That was a big wake up call for me because I was like, "Oh, I was not aware that this could be something nefarious. My bad." Same thing. There are a lot of tools popping up every single day. Not all of them are by OpenAI. A lot of them are by, like, I'll give you an example. We used a voiceover tool at one of the places I've worked at previously. Come to find out that voiceover tool was not a big company. It was somebody running a brownstone, an operation out of a brownstone in Brooklyn, New York. So it was very small, and I was giving them tons of data. Whoops. So like we have to figure out like where these things are going, and then we have to be upfront about it to our employees. So when you use this tool, this is what happens with the data that you put into it. This is why we limit the type of data that can go into it, and this is the type of data that you're allowed to do moving forward, and the type of outputs that are acceptable as a result. So
And there wasn't another question, but I really liked Curtis's comment when we
okay,
were talking about like policy language. And he
yeah,
he said that like policy language is often very technical and not
yes,
obviously applicable to daily work. Need
yep.
to answer the question, so what does this mean for the work we are doing? And I think that's also just a great point as well.
Yeah, I think that we have to get back. This is very relatable for me because I actually did a newsletter article about learning objectives. It was kind of similar to this. I feel like as L&D professionals, we have an obligation to sort of distill these pieces of information into more digestible forms. So if I were working at a place that came out with a big policy document, for example, as the L&D pro there, I might produce a white paper that's like the TLDR on our new data privacy, things with AI. That kind of breaks it down at like an eighth grade level for most people. And you have to be able to take that really complicated language, simplify it down, but then also draw that line, even if it's tangential, to what they're doing. So you may have to create a few of these, right? You may have to create some role specific ones, some department specific ones, et cetera, because there are things that happen that you don't necessarily, that, a lot of people don't understand. I'll give you a very good example. So I was at a company and all of a sudden our external drives started not working. I shoot a lot of video. I do a lot of things with my camera. I use external drives to shoot, and I was completely locked out of doing that. Now, the explanation that came back to me was this gigantic, verbiage laden thing that didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I understood it from a security perspective, but I also didn't understand why that's my problem. And so anyway, I had to take that and strip out all the language. And I actually fed it back into ChatGPT and I said, explain this to me like I'm 5 years old. And then I said, after it gave me the 5 year old description, I said, okay, read me back this thing, but relate it to my job at the time I was in the marketing department, why this would directly apply to me, that kind of thing. So now I don't know if I should have put the policy into the chat GPT, but that's neither here nor there. I did it anyway. That's kind of the thing that I'm talking about. We have to be able to simplify these things. We have to make it relatable. And that's part of the XAI thing as well. you can't just rely on like legalese and making this so that only like a judge or somebody could understand it. Has to be written in plain English, otherwise, or plain whatever your language is, so that people can, understand it. Because if they don't understand it, they're not going to trust it, and if they don't trust it, they're not going to use it ultimately.
And Curtis completely agrees with you. And at that, I'll let you get back into the flow.
Fantastic. Thanks, Curtis. All right. So, how can we as L&D professionals lead this AI transformation? I think it's actually pretty simple. So, L&D needs to be the engine behind AI readiness. So, we need to partner with all of the different departments who are thinking about implementing AI strategies, and we need to help them. We need to offer this up as a help type of thing, a support type of thing. So, we need to be able to use AI to detect skills gaps within our workforce and deliver personalized learning. Now, this is going to assume that you have a mechanism for doing that. So you have an LMS system, Selfish Plug, Adobe Learning Manager, that helps you kind of see a skills map for your employee to say, oh, well, Justin, he's pretty heavy on the L&D side, but in terms of like data and analytics, he's really lagging. Like, you need to be able to do that and then have the system automatically generate a personalized learning path for me to upskill myself within that particular area so that we can start to close those gaps proactively without these departments even saying anything, right? And then if they see that you have helped sort of augment this change within their organization, they'll be more likely to come to you when they need to problem solve later on. We need to leverage AI to create and curate content at scale. So, if you're not already experimenting with content creation with I encourage you to do so. I encourage you to be careful with it though. Um, I have used AI a lot. I have used it to give me outlines. I have used it to conduct SME interviews. Here's what I'm trying to do. Here's who I'm talking to. Some background on this individual. What are the key questions I should ask them during this session, et cetera. Give me like a forget what I called it. It was like an action plan for engaging this person in Q&A. And I've also used it for creating skeleton PowerPoint decks. I've used it for creating scripts for videos. Now, the output is not always fantastic. I'll be very honest about that. But it's better than me sitting in here spinning my wheels for a couple of hours, trying to think of things or whiteboarding endlessly like I used to do. Now I just anytime I have an idea, I throw it into one of these tools and I have it spit some things back at me. If nothing else, it helps me weed out the bad ideas. And then, it gets my brain thinking in the right direction. In terms of curating content, you need a system to do that. So you need an LMS to do that. You need an online platform to help curate things into learning paths or based on relevance or based on interest, based on skills that they need to take based on what you, the administrator, have said they need to be good at. And it needs to be able to do that for you automatically. So as you upload new things into it, it needs to say, oh, this is about data governance. Let me move it over here into this path. Or, oh, this is about creating online courses. Great. That goes over here. That kind of thing. And then you need to partner with your teams to align your learning with their business priorities. So as you do the first one and you come to them and you say, hey, we're implementing the system that's going to help you identify gaps in your team. And we're going to proactively, push learning and notify them and give them things, hopefully upskill them to close some of these gaps for you. Hopefully they'll come back to you when they want to run a new program, release a new app, whatever it is, and they will want to come to you. They will have a set of business priorities. You need to align your learning with those business priorities. So a course that is built to help them get internal adoption of X tool, a course that is built or a video that is designed to help people understand this new policy, etc. It doesn't always have to be a course. I talk like that because that's just kind of my thing. Everything I do is like a course, quote unquote, but I'm talking about lots of things. And then here in this little diagram, you can kind of see L&D is kind of at this center, And we're just kind of doing these things all the time. So we're doing the enablement, the content delivery. We are, kind of helping them with the insights, the skill mapping. We're measuring the impact, and we're just doing this constantly. So I think we need to become this sort of accelerator function within our organization so that they fully understand the value that we bring, and so that they can get on board with the fact that they need to formalize the way that they skill their people. And that's not something that's easy to do in some cases. Some people don't want to do that. They don't want to put things into an LMS. They're like, no, we have a PowerPoint that onboards new employees, or we have a checklist that we give people. That's fine. But there's no way to measure the effectiveness of that. There's no way to measure whether or not the people are actually retaining the knowledge. There's no, so selling back to the business your value as an L&D team, very important. And the way that we do that, I believe, is through using another framework called AIMS, AIMS, assess, identify, mobilize, and sustain. So first, we evaluate your organization's current AI readiness across all teams and roles. So kind of taking that bird's eye view, where's everybody right now? How are they doing? What are they doing? Then we pinpoint critical skill gaps and map them to evolving role requirements. So we want to use AI to do X, Y, or Z across these different roles within this particular department, org, whatever it is. Do we see any gaps? Are people ready for this today? Do they need to be heavily upskilled? Do they need to be slightly upskilled? What does that look like right now? Then we need to mobilize, which is designing and delivering personalized, scalable learning experiences using AI-driven tools. Finally, sustaining. That just means making sure that this continues to roll by measuring impact, gathering feedback, and continuously improving everything to embed learning into your culture. So I think everything that we roll out should be accompanied by a supplemental learning piece. If that's a new program, a new initiative, a new policy, whatever it is, tack on a piece of learning to it, and don't make it like just a click through boring course. Make it an engaging video. Make it a cool, I don't know, widget they can interact with. Make it something that pops up within the app itself. Whatever you want, but just make sure that it is within the flow of work. It's mobile friendly. It's easy for them to access, and also make sure that it's measurable. So who took it, when they took it, how long they spent with it. If they rated it or not, how well they rated it. And then you use all of that information to go back and assess again. So even though this is laid out in a very linear fashion, this should probably be more in a circle, because you will constantly do this. So it'll probably look more like this than it does this, but this just helps kind of visualize each step, because you should start on the far left and work your way to the right if you're just starting out. But this is the AIMS framework that I've used previously. It's also what, if I was starting a new team today, it's the same thing I would use for that. So final thoughts. We are almost to the last poll. We're almost to Q&A. I think goes without saying that AI is reshaping work and the future of work, and that learning is how we're going to keep up. It's the only way. Nobody is going to magically implant all of the knowledge you need about how to use these tools or how to implement them, unless they get that Neuralink thing working, which who knows? But maybe that'd be kind of cool. You just plug my finger in a socket and all of a sudden I know Kung Fu like Neo in the Matrix. We need to make skilling constant, connected, and company-wide. Everybody needs to have access to it. Everybody needs to understand what they need to go from point A to point B. Everybody needs to see a path from point A to point B, especially those that are going to be heavily impacted by this AI revolution. And a lot of them will be. And a lot of them are going to be scared. And a lot of them will probably try to proactively jump ship if you don't do that, if you don't make it clear to them. Now, if the goal is, like I said, if the goal is to let people, go and that kind of thing, then I think that we have to be honest about that, but give them the opportunity to pivot into something else. And then we have to stop thinking about L&D as merely a support function. So stop thinking about L&D as something that people go to when something goes wrong. Oh, we had this complaint. Now we need to make people go through this training. Oh, something broke. So now people need to be trained about it. No, L&D should be a proactive strategy. So hey, we're getting ready to roll out this new AI reporting tool to everybody. Oh, well, we better have a video on how to do that, or we better have a white paper on how to do that. like whatever the case may be. And you know your audience is better than I do, so I won't presume to tell you what type of content to create for them. But in any case, that's where we should go with it. All right. The final thing I want to leave with you here is this quote on the right from Josh Bersin. Learning isn't a department, it's a capability. And I would take that one step further and I would say that it's not just a capability, it's a superpower. If you can help people learn within your organization, you are going to be seen as an enablement function. You're going to be seen as a revenue driver, because most L&D departments exist mostly for just the compliance part of it. But if your L&D department can be responsible for driving true learning outcomes, behavior changes, mindset shifts, upskilling, closing of skill gaps, things like that, real tangible things that people want to see, then it becomes a superpower, not just a department. All right. We got our final poll here, and then we'll do some Q&A really quickly. So, what is your biggest challenge right now related to AI education in your organization? And let's put some of these in the chat. Let's see some of these other questions that are in here. Oh, here's a new question. No time to retrain. Budgeting, leadership buy-in. I get that. IT department. Susan, do you mean the IT department is blocking you from trying new things or new technologies? Yep. Okay. Yeah, and I think that is oh, metering of access, very interesting. I think that's kind of a broader problem that a lot of people have. It's not just IT. It's like Michelle's talking about issues with cybersecurity and IT policies, et cetera. I think this is why we need to get more involved with this. There needs to be steering committees. There needs to be the ability for the worker, the people who are on the front line, to come to the people who are making these policies. And I don't even want to say pitch. I just want to say have a conversation and say, like, look, this is the value that we see in it, and this is where we think we can go with it. And like, what are your concerns about it? And is there any way we can work together to alleviate those concerns? Now, a lot of them won't come to the table because they'll just have wholesale policies that say no. And in that case, I think much of the time you're hamstrung unless you can get somebody that's above them to really buy in. And the only way you're going to do that is to get in the same room with them and do some sort of a hard sales pitch. That's very difficult to do, and I understand that. But if you're in a position to have that executive exposure, I would try it. And if you're in a position to, start a committee, join a committee, whatever the case may be, with the IT and the security people, do that. I know a lot of times that's going to seem arduous and boring, but that's the only way you're going to get in with them. So, training people to use AI's thinking capacity rather than using it as a Google search. Yes, I agree with that. So, I think that's another issue, and that comes to the prompt engineering, right? And also seeing the inherent value in the tool. So we have to teach them how to use the tool. So elevating that bottom level of AI literacy, going beyond just asking it, I don't know how many eggs are in a dozen, kind of kind of thing that a lot of people do. Going beyond that and getting to a point where you're actually asking it questions in the flow of work. And I think that's also why it's important to put these things, these tools, these agents, these chatbots, the things they interact with directly in the flow of work. Because if they leave, and then I'm guilty of this too. If I leave my computer and go to my phone to use ChatGPT, or I go to a different window to use ChatGPT, it's not long, especially if it's like creating an image or something in the background. Like I'll start a new chat and I'll say, like, could you give me a synopsis of the latest episode of Severance? Because I was a little confused. I don't know if anybody here watches Severance, but like I have to have ChatGPT explain some of it to me on a regular basis. So like things like that. I think that's what we're conditioned to do because it's the same mentality we've had for years because of the limitations of things like Siri and Google and Amazon Echo and all that kind of stuff. Like it's been this very question and response type of relationship. It hasn't been, can you help me do something? Right? Yes, the AI work is mysterious and important. I agree with you, Curtis. Um, but we have to get past this like basic transactional relationship with AI and get into more of a how can you actually help me accomplish something? I think I've cracked into that, by it helping me write scripts and helping me improve the whiteboarding for like storyboards for videos and courses and things like that. I think I'm edging towards like if I'm on the ladder, I'm edging into enablement, I think. Because like I have a couple of things that I'm going to share with the rest of the team on my evangelist team that I think would be super helpful. So that kind of thing. What else we got in here? Not a lot of interest in a relatively stagnant department. Yeah, I get that too. It's very hard to get people excited about stuff that they don't want to be excited about. And I think there's a lot of people who are not excited about AI because of the fact that it's AI and they've just heard that it's bad, right? Um, that what that takes is you have to find what relates to them. So I'll give you an example. My dad had a flip phone until 2 years ago. It wasn't until I showed him that some stuff that he could do on his farm with an iPhone that would help him out that he got interested in an iPhone. And then it was a whole nother year before dad actually got an iPhone. My dad's 72 years old and like very hard to get him into anything new these days. But we got him into the iPhone. If nothing else, because I taught him that it had satellite calling, and when he goes walking in the woods where there's no service, he would still be able to call my mother if something happened. Like things like that. So you've got to find, and that's the thing I've said about AI from the beginning. We have to find that iPhone, smartphone level of use case that people will be interested in to help bridge the gap of them being scared of it or reluctant to use it. And then once they do, their mind is open enough that we can introduce some of these things. But we're just not there yet because most people don't care about, creating a really interesting version of a unicorn riding on a spaceship. You know what I mean? But that's something I'm interested in because like I type in all kinds of crazy stuff and have it generate images all the time. People think the L&D team is the enemy. That is, oh man, really? You think people think the L&D team is the enemy? Why? Because we're the ones that are behind, like, you have to take this harassment training module, otherwise you are in trouble. I get that. And I think that's why we give them the homework. Yeah. So I think that's why it's very important to go back to like this, or we have to share with them the value of what we can actually do. So I think first acknowledging, yes, we are the ones that give you the homework. Like be upfront about it. Don't try to, talk around it or anything else, but just say like, yep, we're the ones that give you the homework. I'm sorry. Um, but here are some other things we can do. We can make this more fun. We can make this more enjoyable. We can make it so that it actually takes something off your plate. And you do that and you prove it, then people start to turn around. It's not an easy thing. It's not a fast thing either. Cultural changes take sometimes months, years, I mean it just depends on how difficult the person you're trying to sway is. But it can be done. I've seen it. I've done it myself. It takes a while, but it's possible. One example was again when I was at Twitter and I was working with their product team. They didn't want anything to do with me. They were like, our products are very easy. They speak for themselves. I don't need anybody to create um, training on these things. It's very, very adverse. And then once they saw that the training and the certifications we were providing was actually increasing the amount of people that were ringing their phones wanting to buy ads, they were like, oh, okay, maybe I will help you. And by the end of my tenure at Twitter, there were people coming to me saying, "Can you build me a course on this?" And I was actually turning people down because it's like, no, like I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do a course on you changing the color of the button from blue to black. Like I'm just not gonna do that. We'll update all of our screenshots to show the new color of the button, but I'm not gonna do a course on it. But that's the thing. We got them so excited that they thought a course would do wonders for everything that they did, and that's what you want to get to. Now, I was at Twitter for almost 4 years. It probably took a good part of 2.5 years to get them to that point. Maybe they're stuck with old practices, so they ignore all these new changes and new. Yeah, of course. The only thing that I can think of is why we might be considered the enemy is that we take people out of what is perceived as productivity. I agree with that. And I think that's why we need to put these learning opportunities more within the flow of work. We need to give people access to, videos and course modules or whatever while they're working. There are lots of thing like Adobe Learning Manager, for example, when you log in for the first time, it's got a wall of tutorials that you can take right there. They launch right in line. You can watch them, and it shows you how to do things like how to import your users, how to create a learning path, how to do all these things. Like we purposely put it there so that it's in the flow of you onboarding. So the first time you do it, it's there. And I think more of that needs to happen for sure. I see Liz is back. That must mean I'm out of time.
I was gonna say, you have one more minute. The only other question that I did saw was, well, I guess there's another question pop up, but it's all about tools. And I think,
Mhm.
you know what, I am so glad I'm not alone where I also type in ChatGPT about groceries and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So it's nice to know that. But, you know, while it kind of sounds like just practice with it and use it. So is there any tools, recommendations? I know there were a few questions about tools you recommend
Yeah,
specifically.
I see one about WalkMe. I think that's very good. We have it here at Adobe, actually. It's installed in all of our browsers when we get here. And I love that tool. And I think it's great for documenting. I think anytime you can document a process and then share that with people like in an interactive way, I think that's very helpful. Um, I think a lot of the writing tools that are out there, one of them is called Claude, is the one that I use a lot for writing articles, for writing documentation, and also for some of my LinkedIn stuff. I have it help me outline. So Claude AI is very good. Type is another one. Type AI, I believe it's called. And then voiceovers. So if you need somebody to do voice for you, 11 Labs is another great one for that. And then image generation. Obviously, ChatGPT just got way better. So like I can't say like don't use ChatGPT because the new one is really awesome. But Adobe Firefly is one of my favorites just because of the fact that it has a little bit more control in it. It also kind of respects artists and is not trained on copyrighted material, so you can get some results in there that are pretty unique. I like that one. And yeah, those are the top ones that I'm using right now. There's also a great one that one of my friends made. It's called the Customer Ed Strategist. And everything that we use to build Twitter Flight School, everything I use to build Snap Focus and Walmart Marketplace Learn, our entire process is documented in that thing. He's amazing. His name is Jim Conley. And so if you'd want to check that out, that's another great one as well.
Fabulous. Well, yes, we are out of time. So before we kind of say our goodbyes, is there anything else you'd like to leave with the audience today, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. So please don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn, do a lot of content over there. Also, if you haven't tried Adobe Learning Manager and want to, please go over to the Learning Manager site and sign up there. I can give you the link directly if you message me. And if you have any questions about it, please let me know. And then if anybody is going to be at Learning Technologies UK on April 24th and 25th, I'm speaking there and I will be there. And there's also an Adobe event there, which I'll be putting on LinkedIn today, which you can sign up for called Tastemakers.
Fantastic. I would love like a free trip to the UK. But that sounds fantastic. Thank you so much, Justin. This was honestly a really great conversation. I was intrigued the whole time about all these AI tools. So thank you so much for that. For everyone else, though, I do invite you to join us for some more up and coming training industry webinars this month. You can register now for these programs and watch past webinars now at trainingindustry.com. And all of our webinars are pre qualified for a credit hour by HRCI, SHRM, ISPI, and CPTM. So send me or anybody on the TI an email and we will send you those codes. I'll also point out where it is in this deck as well. But if you're like, what is CPTM is, Liz? It is the Certified and Professional and Training Management Program that assists you in developing core competencies that will empower you to manage the future training needs of your organization. So you can find more at trainingindustry.com/training. And I would love to meet you all here in Raleigh, North Carolina for the 2025 Training Industry Conference and Expo. So TICE is where learning leaders like you gather to forge new professional connections, learn from each other, and address your most pressing learning challenges. And then lastly, an evaluation survey should have popped open another tab in your browser. We would appreciate hearing your thoughts on today's session. And thank you again to our amazing speaker, Justin Seeley, and our amazing sponsor, Adobe. But lastly, I thank you all for your time and attention today. I hope to see you next time. Have a wonderful week and see you next time. Bye, everybody.